Surprise question, dear viewer! Test your knowledge of the game today and win absolutely nothing, because in Warriors Balance Bonanza there is no victor. Question of tonight is: which one of these abilities counts as a movement skill for the sake of interaction with Warriors Sprint? Is it A. Skull Grinder, B. Slicing Maelstrom, C. Decapitate, or D. Whirlwind? Place your bets and lock in your answers, dear viewers. All the wonderful prize of fucking nothing is going to fly past you and into the hands of somebody else. Did you choose already? Are you certain of your answers? Make haste, my dear. Time is running out. Correct answer is Decapitate! Congratulations, you won nothing! But fret not, for there's a bonus reward, which is a comedic rant sponsored by ArenaNet themselves. Because if there's a singular bloody thing they couldn't have done dirtier, is Warrior Spec starting with B like both of them. But let's get unreasonably angry at one at the time. For some grog-forsaken reason, the skill that doesn't make any impact on your mobility at all is the one considered a movement skill. We could seek answer in pointing out that Eviscerate is in fact a movement skill, so it is possible that Primal Burst inherited the properties of the Core Burst. However, we see different things happen to Slicing Maelstrom, where Core Burst, Breaching Strike, is a movement skill, but its primal equivalent isn't. On top of that, Rampart Splitter is also considered a movement skill, despite neither it nor Path of Victory have any impact on Warriors' movement at all. Dear Arena Grogging Net, these aren't inconsistencies that you have to play the class for 10,000 hours to detect. All you have to do is mouse over a bloody tooltip. And the same applies to Flurry Tooltip or Crackshot or entire Blade Swan as a spec. These kinds of bugs, the painfully easy to spot and on-the-nose ones, make me lose a little bit of hope every day. Because if no one up there is addressing these shining examples of easy to spot bug, then how are we supposed to seriously talk about nuanced spec-specific mechanics and concepts that actually need higher threshold of class understanding than simply knowing it exists? Fortunately, that's a point at least one person at ANET crossed some time ago, resulting in staff being above decent and Berserker's existence getting at least acknowledged. Unfortunately, that person seems to be working in a room full of raccoons, resulting in Rampart Splitter doing for some reason half the damage stated on the tooltip, which is certainly a bug, as between doing nothing and doing something, when it comes to Warrior, you can be damned sure the bear and raccoons were both involved at some point in the process. That said, let's ignore all signs to worry and give the benefit of the doubt to the devs, as we usually do in between the outbursts of anger. As far as we know, there could be an employee getting hours put into comprehending Warrior's nuances right now as we speak. Berserker functions on a premise of power window/window of opportunity that Rage provides. In theory, that means Berserker is significantly stronger for a limited amount of time when activating Rage. In reality, that's how Reaper functions. While Berserker's power budget is either fully committed to staying in Rage permanently, or is tied mostly to quickness and super speed you get on entering/exiting Berserk. Rage itself provides Berserker with rather mediocre power increase. 15% attack speed increase is a joke, just like dual wielding is. It doesn't stack with anything, and it's overwritten instead. In PvE, quickness is so ever-present that buffs overwritten by quickness essentially don't exist. And in versus modes, engagements are a frantic scramble between 2 or more players on a sped-up tournament edition of a crisis management curse, so nobody is going to spot that 15% speed increase. This essentially means that only substantial increase to Berserker players' power budget is Primal Bursts, which are either a significant improvement to a weapon if Core Burst sucks, or the exact opposite if you want to play with staff or daggers and just found out that developers hate you. What Primal Bursts seemingly want to be is a direct improvement to core equivalent by lightly changing properties of the skill. Flurry becomes ranged and gets nastier condition. Combustive Shot lasts shorter but does more per second on top of changing AoE shape. Eviscerate gains rest mechanic. Arc Divider doubles its AoE radius. Rupturing Smash does so as well, while changing its control effect to one that ignores stability, and Kill Shot becomes moderately less of a complete garbage fire. The pattern seems to revolve around making already specialized damaging skill a bit more broadly applicable and henceforth more powerful. Of course, unless you are a dagger. Then forget everything, you're a greatsword now. Differing properties of skills are often situationally better. Like for example, Rupturing Smash lets you control a foe with lots of stability access, and Earthshaker does the same to foes with lot of resistance at hand. Unfortunately, you can't just choose one or the other, you always have access to one of them at a time, but still can throw a curveball at your opponent if you are at full adrenaline and watch their brains do a software reboot, because no one ever expects a slither of depth from a warrior spec. Speaking of, there is one specific nuanced mechanic that born from Berserk having no cast time. You see, there is always a tiny delay between a burst skill animation start and adrenaline being actually spent, in between which you can wedge your rage opener. It will make the core burst act as level 1 burst, as while going Berserk you reduce your adrenaline to 10, and that adrenaline will be eaten to facilitate core burst you buffered beforehand. But that'll put you in rage, and your burst will go on a much shorter cooldown that you can reset with Blood Reckoning. This opens up the potential for some devastating combos, even with downscaling core burst to the first level, as everything in said combo will receive bonus damage from all traits that improve your in-rage damage, and you can sneak through CC or a gap closer or both and still go Berserk in situation where that would be otherwise impossible. Time window for performing this technique is different for every burst skill and in some cases very tight, so it's maybe not that impressive and looks just bad in comparison to Soulbeast's Butt Shredder 9000, but hey, Berserker's buttons only change color, Soulbeast gets a fresh set of new ones, and can stay in his empowered state permanently. One of these is not like the other. Omitting that comment from list of reasons why Crabface never gets into ArenaNet's partner program, let's consider for a moment some detail I haven't brought to your attention yet. Using your core burst puts your primal burst on cooldown. Fortunately, when going into rage, primal burst doesn't inherit the core burst's cooldown, which means they don't share the same cooldown, but the fact that both of these go on cooldown simultaneously while only one of them can be used at a time means that when you manage to land a core burst, gather adrenaline to rage and berserk in time frame short enough, you are punished for playing well. And similar situation happens when you manage to squeeze one more primal burst right before berserk runs out. I don't understand why core and primal bursts were coded to both go on cooldown at the same time. All it does is make playing around the rage a bit more awkward. Berserker's resources heavily lean into adrenaline economy side of Warrior's gameplay, and if I can gather enough adrenaline to burst 5 times in a combo, then I should be able to burst 5 times. Core and primal bursts shouldn't share cooldown in the slightest, or at least going Berserk should reset cooldowns of all burst skills. If you want to make Berserker good in PvP, maybe stop playing with numbers and unshackle him first. Entire community will certainly prefer Berserker's offense to require some semblance of skill rather than disintegrating people with one button just because. We already have enough of this shit with Akim's Skull Grinder combo. We don't need any more. That said, it's time to talk about Berserker's traits. Primal Rage gives us our class mechanic. In first column we have Smash Brawler with extra crit chance in Rage and Rage extension burst hit, Last Blaze, Burning application and use of Rage skills, and Savage Instincts, as Stun Break, and Window of Strike Damage Invulnerability on Rage Opener. Burst of Aggression gives a small amount of quickness and super speed on Rage Opener. In second column, Blood Reaction gives us condition damage for % of our power and Ferocity for % of our precision, both bonuses doubled in Rage. Hit the Soul gives Fury and either Might or Quickness depending on the game mode, and Dead or Alive gives us a Moment of Blood Reckoning effect on Rage Opener. Fatal Frenzy gives us 300 of both power and condition damage. In Grandmaster column, Bloody Roar gives resistance on Rage Opener and 10% more damage in Rage. King of Fires makes burning you apply last longer, periodically gives Fire Aura, and makes your Rage skills detonate the aura to apply burning in AoE around you, and last but not least, Immortal Champion gives you stability on Rage Opener, option to manually end Rage, and repeat of every effect you get on entering Rage, on exiting it as well. With the power of basic cognitive functions, you can see that 3 bottom traits synergize with each other while top and middle row doesn't necessarily do so as well. On Rage effects, synergize perfectly with something that gives you a repeat of all on Rage effects, on top of which, besides Shattering Blow, it is the only source of stability in Berserker's general toolset. Berserker is soft locked into playing these traits. Sure, you aren't going to phase out of existence for playing with Bloody Roar, but if you want to build a glass cannon, you'll have to be content with the fact that some other classes can launch their burst combos out of stealth with a skill that tracks, evades, and still does a big damage from behind 700 layered blocks or from complete invulnerability, because that's balanced. On top of which, there are backwards trade synergies going on just a little to the left. Smash Brawler gives you raw crit chance, making your power build less dependent on precision, and Blood Reaction rewards you with ferocity for having high precision. So do you want to overcap on crit chance, or do you want your precision conversion to be worth less in my opinion? Arms Defense Hammer Berserker can cap his crit chance with 0 precision, and is overflowing on Fury. Extra ferocity would be very helpful here, but I can't have it because making both rewards a power conversion would be just too convenient, wouldn't it? Conflict is good in literature, not in a trait line. Middle row of these bad boys is certainly interesting. Banning, boons and more burning might sound unappealing, but there's a catch. King of Fires has its own mechanic. Gaining Fire Aura through combo finishers and detonating it with Rage skills is an interesting addition to already present class mechanics. King of Fires invites me to dance, promises me power, and sows fear into the hearts of enemies. Except it doesn't, because it's garbage. The only part of it that works consistently is gaining Fire Aura. Its detonation portion has no animation at all, not even an explosion effect like overcharged cartridges have. Nothing that would indicate that something is actually happening. Only thing telling you whether you hit it or not is 3 more stacks of banning appearing or not, which is a huge bloody problem for PvP because every Rage skill has a slightly different timing for aura detonation, so even figuring out if you hit it is counterintuitive. To add insult to injury, the proc itself does roughly half as much as Fan of Fire, which makes going through entire hustle completely not worth it, as it doesn't even look cool. Not to mention being tied to Rage skills. Don't get me wrong, these aren't particularly bad. We have a Gap Closer, a block, and a very powerful elite skill, but unfortunately, the competition for utility spots in warrior builds is fierce. So if we are trying to play seriously, maximum 2 of Rage skills are making it into the build. The same debacle plagues Last Blades, being essentially an add-in to a group of skills that make their appearances in builds rather sporadically already hinders their performance. And on top of which, to equip either of these traits, you need to give up on a stun break, damage immunity, stability, and repeat of all your most valuable effects. In short, due to power discrepancy and lackluster synergies, or lack thereof, playing Berserker in PvP without the utility bottom row of Berserker traits provide is much more risk for a reward too easy to deny from you by your opponents, especially those genuinely good at the game. That makes it so only Berserker builds that can be called optimal are the one that work best with this specific setup. If you want to improve Berserker, start from making these traits worth taking over these traits in at least some other scenarios that strictly PvE. Thank you for your attention. Crabface out.